Welcome to Art Lounge, everyone, to Drawing Comics Part 12. I'll be continuing from where I left off yesterday. And for those of you just tuning in, this is the beautiful work of John Buscema. Amazing artist from Marvel. He's also done plenty of other work. If you guys missed the first episode of Drawing Comics, I highly recommend you check it out to see what I had to say about John Buscema. I had a 5-minute, short flick to talk about his history, talk about his journey to becoming an illustrator, and just showing different work that hasn't even been published either. So it was just a combination of his popular titles, the amazing drawings that he's done, and sketches that have not been published or shown as common. I think there is a book out now with a lot of his sketches there, but some of the drawings I just have never been able to find anywhere else. Aside from that site, I think the book might have them. So check that out as well. It's on Amazon. I think John Buscema's sketches. Great work. Beautiful work. And this is Conan the Barbarian, the movie special. So it's very similar to the movie as well. And we are going to continue on with this page right here when Conan got caught trying to infiltrate the cult leader and his meeting, try to spy on what's going on there, and they discovered him. And now he's been captured. And this is where we are now. Just sticking to the principles from the previous stream, I started out with something light, just to set the limits for all that's going on within the panel, to make sure that it fits. All the different parts fit. They're not kind of bleeding out or just shifted way too much. And the best way to do that, one of the best tricks that I've used many a times in drawing, is studying the space relationship between objects. So for example, when I was drawing this knee right here, I was looking at the reference, and I was comparing, well, how far is the knee from the frame, from the panel frame? And that allowed me to draw it exactly in its right placement, so that everything else doesn't have to shift because of it, or there isn't that much of a gap between them, and then compositionally everything gets thrown off. So and that technique helps with many things, not just the example that I gave you. It could be on facial features as well, like simple things like that. Like for instance, studying the distance between the nostril, the top part of the nostril, and the eye. A mistake that so many people make, and it makes the drawing look so weird when people ignore that part of the face. Really study that. If you want to change or really improve, rather, your drawing, pay attention to that detail. It is a game changer. So that technique is great for multiple things. And really it's just another tool in your tool belt to help you accomplish whatever it is that you're set out to do. Just like the head measurement, that being the unit of measurement for the rest of the body, it's just another tool to make sure things come out accurate in the way that you're planning them out to be. I just like to think of it as like you have a tool belt with multiple tools on there, and you just pull them out whenever one doesn't suit the situation. Pull out another, and just varying them in order to get the project done. So just some announcements to make. In the future, I will be changing the hours. As you guys could see, it's sometimes just not enough. Like I was doing the Drawing Basics stream just now, and I do like to include an overview of things that we've learned so far, just to like reiterate and to refresh the mind on very important principles, I think, to keep in mind daily as you're drawing. And that took a good chunk of the stream. It took like half hour to do it, talking about all the different principles and tools, methods, things to keep an eye out for. It took half an hour of the stream, and then when I sat down to draw like new content, the stream was almost over. So that's not really good. And I like to review things like every 2 days, every other day, kind of, to keep the previous lessons or the previous ideas fresh in the mind. And they're just really important, I think, in order to really improve your drawing. And they're things that you have to keep in mind on a daily basis. So just to help you guys there. But it does take up a lot of the time on the stream. So in the future, I'm going to be changing the hours. And they're going to be going from 8 o'clock, and it's going to be 2 hours as opposed to just 1 for each stream. So from 8 until 10, it'll be Drawing Basics on Mondays. Then from 8 until 10, it will be Drawing Comics on Tuesdays, 8 until 10. Drawing my projects on Wednesdays, and then on Thursdays it's going to be Coloring Comics from 8 until 10. And 2 hours, it's just not, even 2 hours is not enough. Like, I can easily do 6 to 8. On my own time, yeah, like I could do 6 to 8, even 11 hours for the project that I'm working on. But I don't think you guys want to have 8 hours of that, and an 8-hour stream isn't going to be good for anybody, I think. Sometime in the future, I will be playing around with hours again. Really depends. Depends on the stream itself, how much it's going to pick up. The more it's going to pick up, the more likely hours will change to maybe longer. Oh, this little detail reminded me of last night's stream, the project stream, where I previewed you guys work of Mobius. He's a French artist, and I was just showing some panel work from his comic book and how much little tiny detail really played into creating such an amazing scene. If you guys missed that one, or if you haven't checked it out, I highly encourage you do, just so you could see his work and also just see the issue, the name of the issue, for you guys to search for either on Comixology or other places where you get access to comics. It's just beautiful work. If you're a fan of comics, you absolutely have to own at least one issue of his work. The stories are wonderful as well. Very creative. Extremely creative. Like one of the most creative comics that I've read. And rest assured, guys, I will be doing that plenty of times throughout the stream. I'll be previewing other panels, either from the same issue or a different one or different comic. I did another one of Eduardo Risso's work. Another favorite artist of mine. Absolutely amazing. So check that out as well. He talked about his techniques and his panel work. This is a little intro to 100 Bullets. The comic book that he worked on. Writer Brian Azzarello. Great story. And obviously art. I'm not sure which stream number it is, but if you guys look at the history of streams, you'll see it. It's also in the description. Row? Do I have to replace the lead? No. Okay, good. Something I really enjoy in old school comics is they did a lot of feathering for shadows. Like instead of just having a solid block for, let's say, a shadow, they will give it like this texture that I think is so cool. And I really enjoy doing that. And it is a matter of skill. Like I see some people trying to do it, but they're very messy with it. And just doesn't look right. You could kind of tell just from that how much somebody draws or how little they draw or how little they practice. But being very careful with those lines, you know, the feathering lines, can be a world of a difference for the final piece. And that's another great thing to actually practice in this little sketchbook that I was talking about in a previous stream. This one right here. So along with like practicing your gradation and practicing basic shapes, perfecting the circle, perfecting the cylinder shape, you could do feathering where you just like fill up the entire page of just lines next to each other and try to draw them as well as you can. Consistently, with the space between each one being consistent. And just fill up the page as much as possible. Now looking at this, I'm just trying to remember and compare it to like digital work. When I was trying to do the same thing with digital work, it's so much slower. There's just this disconnect between your hand-eye. You know, you're not looking at your hand while you're drawing, you're looking at the screen. So you don't even see the pencil, and I think that creates a disconnect. I'm sure the software itself creates a disconnect. It kind of like slows down the process. But I think eventually, when you get used to it, you just accept those conditions and then start to work faster based on them. But still, I just really enjoy the traditional process. I like the feeling of how the pencil feels on paper as opposed to digital, where it's like plastic on plastic. Granted, there's some that are really good now that kind of really do resemble the texture of paper, but still, I don't think it's going to be a replacement of any kind. And as I mentioned previously, I like the break from everything digital. So for those of you who are just tuning in and this is your first episode of Drawing Comics, you might ask, why copy this work? And to that I say multiple reasons. And the first one, and it's more of like a personal thing for me, is I find it to be like reading. You know, when you're reading a book, you're in the mind of the writer. You're reading their story. You're reading their way of telling a story. You're reading the characters that they've created for your imagination to manifest, in a sense. To invoke certain emotion using their words. And I find that drawing or copying the comics is similar to that. It's like you are in the mind of the artist. You are creating the characters that they're creating. And because of that, you get into the scene as well. You're creating the lines that they're creating. And when you read, you're also learning, right? You're learning different words. You're learning different ways of telling stories, different senses and structures and such. It's the same idea with this. You're visually learning. You know, if you are interested in comics, you're visually learning all these different elements that create the scene, that create the characters, perspectives, ways of telling a story through the panels, facial expressions, lines, different lines that you wouldn't have made. But because you're it's like a vicarious experience. You're just living through them in a sense. You're living in this story through them, and you're able to recreate it and learn from it. All these different elements. Now, I wouldn't say this is my work in some ways, and in fact, I would avoid as much as possible to draw just like them. I'm not interested in that personally. I like drawing my own stuff. I like drawing my own characters and styles and such, but this also helps to enrich in that. In a sense, for example, next time you're drawing, you could be like, oh, there was this camera angle, and that was a really fun one. And you could just have that as the base and build from there something new and something different. Alter it. And then soon enough, if you play around with it long enough, it becomes more personalized, as opposed to like drawing it exactly as it is. So I find it to be a learning tool and just a fun experience. And I highly encourage anybody else who's into comics to do the same thing. Pick a comic that you like and practice. Try to draw it from start to finish. And you'll also realize how much work goes into such a comic. So when you're starting your project, you already have some experience. You're not like, whoa, I didn't realize that there's this, that, and the other, and this is how long it takes to actually do this. So it prepares you for so many different things. There's multiple advantages of drawing from comics. For those of you viewers who are thinking about which comic you would like to draw or learn from, post it in chat. Share with everybody else for them to check out the comic book. You guys can engage with each other, talk about what you like about the comic, etc. And just like drawing from all these panels and just seeing how much effort goes into each and every one of them. Just a new level of appreciation for the art form. And how well he would draw. Like, he was pumping out 2 issues per month. But 60 pages a month or more, depending on the issue and depending on the story, of pencil work with this level of detail in each panel, which really goes to show how much he drew. And even his brother, you know, quoting the short film that I made for the first stream of drawing comics, quoting his brother, he said that he used to eat, sleep, and breathe drawing. Like, he was always drawing. Whenever he was around people, he got bored with things, or whatever it is that he was doing, he would get bored and just take out a sketchbook and start drawing. Another reason why I highly encourage you guys to get yourself a sketchbook, something small like that. So when you get bored or when you get time, you can also draw and just be in the habit of always drawing. You could do it multiple times throughout the day. It's even better. You want to have like a very intimate relationship with your pencil, where you get so good at wielding the pencil, it's just, you're pumping out 60 pages a month. And that comes with dedication. So when somebody tells you, oh, it's a talent, it's something that's gifted or whatnot, I suggest you just ignore it completely and just chalk it up as them finding excuses not to try. Because they're either too scared or they were talked out of it from a young age, and rather than pursuing it anyways, they just spread around that terrible notion that only people who are gifted at birth are able to draw this well, and yada yada. It's just nonsense. It's defeatist mentality. Somebody ruined it for them, or they ruined it for themselves by just continuously believing that. It's just a matter of speed. Like, some people are faster at it. Maybe there's like genetic predisposition to it because their parents are really good at it, or they're just really good at it, whichever. But it doesn't mean that people who don't do it as quickly aren't capable of doing it. In fact, sometimes it works where people who dedicate themselves more than somebody who's very quick at something, whether it's music or anything else, then they just outpace them. You know, not to say that it's a comparison thing, but just this idea that, you know, it's about talent or whatever else, just to argue against it. There's been plenty of instances where people are just able to do great work because they dedicated themselves to it. You know, you don't need to compare yourself to anybody. You just have to be dedicated and challenge yourself. You know, it's one thing to learn from something or someone, And it's another to say, oh, I'm gonna do it to like prove myself. Otherwise, it's like you're missing the entire point of what it's all about, which is the process, which is getting into it. You know, you're drawing the comics and you're into the comics. It's not about I'm gonna finish this comic so that I could show off or whatever else. Like it's not the point. You could kind of see it in their work when it becomes very showy rather than really embracing it. Like from last night's stream showing Mobius's work. I mean, even this, you could just see how much they loved the process of creating comics and all that stuff. It's so evident in their work. And that toxic behavior doesn't belong anywhere, I think. I think it just ruins whatever it is that people are pursuing. Even in culinary art, you know, I think it's the same idea. You don't need to compare yourself or try to beat anybody or any of that stuff. You just have to have passion for food and taste and having that adventurous mind to try different things and challenge yourself, learn from others rather than trying to beat them or whatever else. Like it's just stifles things. In some ways makes your work worse. Not only that, but just spreading toxic environment and behavior. So like multiple negatives to it. And for those of you who haven't heard it from the previous stream, I highly encourage you watch Amadeus. It's a great movie. It's in the 90s. I think it's 1999. I believe it's a movie in 1999. It's about Wolfgang Amadeus, Mozart, and Salieri. And that movie is just a perfect example of somebody who is very passionate about what they're doing, and another one who operates from spite and jealousy and resentment. It's just this movie about how Salieri and Amadeus, they have this relationship. It's like a love-hate relationship, mainly from Salieri. Like he's just so resentful and hateful that this person is just capable of doing things a lot faster and with ease, as opposed to him spending so much time trying to get there that he just completely loses his focus on music and just starts to focus way more on Mozart. And just like he admires him, but at the same time he hates him. This is weird. Well, it's just something that happens when people choose that path. They just become kind of crazy. And rotten. They start to rot within. Which stifles creativity. Which stifles producing interesting work. So yeah, it's a good movie talking about how toxic that mode of behavior is, especially in a creative field. Great acting. Robert Downey Jr. plays Amadeus. Mozart. He's pretty funny there as well. I have to dig into my movie library and find other movies that have the same theme, the same idea. I want to say Prestige, maybe? Maybe? I don't fully remember. And I don't know if it really had a positive message or it was more about just like beating somebody in this competitive mode or whatever. There are other great movies about it. It just stuck with me because overall it was such a good movie. And I watched it, I was like, wow, it's so true. Oh no, I just realized that I totally forgot to stop the stream to divide it. Bummer. No biggie. It's a one-time thing. Maybe I'll figure out other ways of splitting it up in two. So I looked at the time, I was like, an hour and 40 minutes? Really? That can't be right. And then it hit me, I was like, I never stopped the stream, that's why. The truth is, I don't want to stop the stream. I am enjoying this very much. In fact, during that period where, I had to get my computer repaired and all, I realized that I was like, wow, I really do like it. I miss going live. I miss just sitting there and just talking about art and talking about all these different comics, admiring the panel work. It really gives me that time to focus on comics in ways that before I wouldn't. Like if I'm actually, if I'm not streaming and I'm looking at comics, I start to feel guilty because I'm like, I should be sitting and drawing. Like, why am I sitting here looking at it? And this kind of gives me the opportunity to do both. Like to really admire the comics, to talk about them, to look at the work, and at the same time draw. And not feel like I'm wasting time doing something I should be. Or putting in the time that I should be in other areas, like drawing. Just kind of get the best of both worlds there. I'm like freehanding these bricks right now, but there are guidelines. Like, for example, once you draw this one right here, right, that's like the first brick that you draw with perspective, then you can use that as a reference for other ones as well. They have to follow, they have to be parallel to each other. Like this part of the bricks, or this side, can start angling more towards, you know, this direction. Just, it's not gonna look right. But perspective is something that I'm gonna jump into later. I still feel like I'm bombarding some of you guys with a lot of this information per stream, but that's the reason. That's the reason why I tend to review more, because I feel like that way, if you miss some things or you didn't pick up some of the things before because it was too much, maybe you'll pick up something new in the review time, and on and on. Maybe you didn't pick up something new in the review, but you'll pick up something new in the next time I do it. And that's really the goal there. I think I'm pretty much done with this panel. The perfectionist side of me is coming out, and I'm just trying to see where are some areas that I overlooked. Making sure angles are right. And comparing it side by side, I could already see that there's some differences there, obviously. But the goal isn't to do it exactly for any other reason than to just improve hand-eye coordination, attention to detail, that sort of thing. That's the only reason why I'm really trying to pursue that level of precision with this work. And with the sad song playing in the background, I will have to cut the stream, everyone. I'm sorry. I will be back tomorrow, I promise. Same time, same place. just get a little bit more of this detail in. If you guys enjoy this content, subscribe. The like button if you're watching it on YouTube. Support the stream. And check out the social media. I will be posting other ways for you guys to connect with each other. That's a little bit more consistent, more personal, and yeah, I'll be making that announcement very soon. Just have to put everything together. Just not enough time in the day. I will be back at 8 p.m. tonight to do the project stream and the coloring comics stream, where I'll be coming back to John Buscema's work. I'm trying to stay within character to the music in the background. But yeah, coloring comics at 9 p.m. and the project stream at 8 p.m. If you guys want to come back for the stream, that's going to be a good time to do it. It's Eastern Standard Time. So, with that said, I'll see you guys then. Thanks for tuning in.